All right, everybody, welcome today. Thank you for coming on this session on this Friday afternoon with us. And we're probably going to talk about 45 minutes or so in regards to the blockchain bash and the things that we learned. We went to the blockchain bash on Saturday, a full day event. I felt it was very good. We met a lot of people. I learned a lot of things and a lot of content, and we got some ideas in terms of the direction of the blockchain industry, which I thought was really cool as well. And Talisha, before I go further, since you brought the blockchain bash to us, why don't you tell everyone a little bit of the history of how you met Bob and,
Oh, sure. Yeah, so I had attended in early part of May the Hugh Tech Conference, which is a African-American woman conference that was centered around technology. And in, some of our breakout sessions, we were just talking about blockchain, and I had just, mentioned that I was blockchain certified, about Black blockchain consultants. And the gentleman who was the director of registration came over to me for Hushin College, who was the host of the event, and he said he had some great resources for me and would love to connect because they were doing coursework and just finding somebody in the space that could really talk about it, and not from a not technical perspective. He's like, he wanted kind of just somebody to really just give him the ins and outs of what blockchain was. So we spent some time with that. He introduced me to Chris. Obviously, we've had him on, Mr. Marcos as well, and Bob was another one of those resources. So Bob was really excited after we kind of had our initial dialogue and invited us to go. And he's like, it's a really great thing. They're putting it together. As you heard, it took them 7 weeks.
Oh, is it just me? I can't hear you anymore.
No, I don't know. Can you hear me? I don't know.
Let me know in the chat if you can still hear Talisha or if it's just me.
Sydney, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's just you.
Oh, Tessa's saying, yeah, Bryce saying they can hear you, so it must just be me.
Okay. So that is truly, like I said, how the invitation came about was, Bob asking us to come and provide any resources that we could. So I participated in specifically the Genius Bar, which was individuals who would speak about a specialty. So I spoke specifically about healthcare and blockchain as well as our consultancy. So I kind of wrapped that in there to kind of give us, some representation. And I did think it was great.
I did too. And it was really funny because we spoke the day before the blockchain bash and you're like, what do I say at this Genius Bar thing? And I'm like, just go from what you know.
He told me a day before that I was speaking at I'm like, you asked me for resources. You didn't tell me that I was going to be on it. That was a little different.
Right. So, and I think that's my suggestion to anybody is to go, with what you know and just start from there. If people, I got an email today, somebody asked me, I think, to be on a panel discussion, and I'm like, okay. So
maybe I can figure it out.
I'm doing my little studying every day, and I'm going to just get up there and start from what I know as a business plan writer, grant writer, all of the things I've learned from my past, and then the little things I'm learning about blockchain and just mesh it all together. So Sydney, you also came out with us as well. What brought you to the blockchain bash?
Yeah, so for me, I'm in a different place than, and probably everybody's in a different place. So I am, still learning, trying to figure it out, trying to get my script together. And so for me, it was very interesting to go and hear different perspectives from different industries, to hear to just see all of the different levels. I thought we had breakout groups. And so we were able to meet and work with different people who are at all different levels within blockchain. And I was fortunate enough to be in a group with people, who you definitely had more knowledge than I did. So it was very exciting from that standpoint. For me, I went more from a consumer standpoint, I would say. But the big aha for me, and I kind of mentioned this to Cheree, I inadvertently had lunch with a man, and we were just talking. And so I am actually in the job market right now. And so he asked me what I did, and I told him that I was in fashion marketing. And he said, "Oh, I am too." Long story short, it turns out that he is the founder and CEO of a company that I'm currently interviewing with. So more than it being just serendipitous, I think the big nugget there was that there was a man who was there who is a bona fide multi-millionaire. And he was there because he wants to keep himself relevant, and he wants to stay on top of the growing trends in technology. And so that was my biggest aha. Like, that man, my guess, probably could have bought everybody in that room. But he saw that this is a growing industry and felt that it was important for him to be there. So not that I did not think that that was the case, but to have that validated live and in person was something that was just a major piece for me. So, I know we all run across things like that, but I think that, it's very, very clear that this is the future, and that there are people who are in very luxurious places in their life who are still trying to figure out how they can get more. And so I think that what you've put together, Cheree, for all of us to make us more educated and to get us out there and to be a part of what is going to be the future is just, phenomenal. So it's great to be part of this group.
Well, I will say this. Whenever you think about these conferences, they will have the VIP section and the VIP ticket, and then they have the regular ticket. Sydney and I were in the regular section. And this guy who is multimillionaire, if not a billionaire, was sitting having lunch with us in the regular section of the blockchain conference. And he's a regular guy too. I mean, you would have passed him on the street. So I'm just saying that don't dismiss the regular section and think, oh, if I'm not in VIP, whatever, I'm not going to get this, that, or the third. Sometimes VIP has access. You can get access, but then other times it's really just what's happening on the floor. So I thought that was very interesting when you and I had that conversation. And thanks for sharing that, because I didn't know if you wanted that public or not.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So then let's go into some of the lessons that we learned from Blockchain Bash specifically. So well, I'm going to start off with a couple of things, and I'm going to let you ladies chime in with some things you learned. And then I'm going to end with the white paper 2.0 thing, because I think that that's an expanded discussion that we should talk about. So the first thing is, I got there a half hour late, I will admit. I had to stop for coffee and gas. But they had a couple of keynote speakers in the very beginning, and one of them defined blockchain as a platform for data management and authenticity. It's not sexy, but it's essential. And he gave the explanation of VeriSign. I don't know if people remember VeriSign, but I do. It's so... it was in the authenticity biz or verification business, and Symantec, which was one of the big companies, sold for $1.3 billion in 2010. Again, the blockchain business is, according to this gentleman, not a sexy business, but it's essential. It's the wave of the future. It's about data analytics and managing data and things like that. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that, as well as anything you heard in those initial keynote presentations that you want to mention.
You want to go, Ms. Sydney?
I just think, I'll talk about the initial keynotes. I thought what was very interesting is that, as we all know, this is still an evolving technology. And so we were in Philadelphia, which is, when I think of it certainly as a major hub. And it just really showed to me that there is, ground up, I hate to say that term, but the opportunities are still there. I think there are aspects of it that are sexy, depending upon the industry that it's in. One of the things that I've been investigating and started investigating a little bit more even after we left was, just the role of blockchain from a cannabis standpoint. And just when you think about the cannabis industry in general, it is going to be the other future from a pain management standpoint and for so many other things. So I think it is important to continue to embrace this technology, whether you think it's sexy or not. There's sexy aspects of it to it if that's what interests you. But to me, money is sexy. And so, I think that is, the thing that is really important. The other thing that I will mention, and this is more general, but we were in Philadelphia, which is clearly has a high population of people of color. And there were, I guess, I don't know, maybe 100 people there. And there were probably 5 or 6 of us, people of color. So, it made me sad, to a certain degree. But it also just emphasized, how much and how important what you are trying to do in terms of educating and what all of our roles has to be in terms of expanding this education to, to people of color.
Right. Talisha?
I would say, again, I was there Friday. So I attended the meet and greet at that point in time. And again, it was amazing to see the knowledge level. There were a lot of people who really were just there because they said, I just want to know what it is. So we had a very eclectic, not only from a standpoint of industry, but we also had, again, that knowledge base. So people were coming to the event really trying to garner knowledge just to see where they could fit, see what it could be, what's available, and having those dialogues with those individuals, and then going to the actual industries that were represented. We talked to people who were in gemstones and pharmacy and, doing all kinds of different things. I mean, it was amazing how many industries were represented that you wouldn't even think sometimes, like, oh, how are you using the blockchain? Again, sitting in a breakout session, speaking to Robert Landry, having gemstones. I would have never come up with that because that's not something of my area or even my purview, but to have that dialogue and now thinking about things from a very different perspective of just how to structure and how businesses are really coming to understand, again, the viability of having a data management system and an authenticity platform.
Right.
So again, the sexiness, yes, it's like, well, is, laying cable is not sexy, but everybody wants Wi-Fi, So you want something and you want it to work very well. You're not really thoroughly interested in how it works. You just want to know that it works. And that's, yes. I think we're bridging that gap to making sure that we're along that path in each and every of those ways to make sure that people have that information.
Right. What I thought was very interesting about Robert and the gemstone thing is that we consistently hear about blockchain and diamonds, but he's taken the other stones, rubies, sapphires, other precious stones, right? So it really is about different people finding their niches in some of these forgotten industries. So some things, like cannabis, for example, and healthcare, medical records, they always get the front page. Mm-hmm. But I think some of the biggest breakthroughs and maybe some of the biggest profits and profit margins are going to come from some of these forgotten niche markets.
I love the hash bag. That was brilliant.
Yes. Tell people what that is.
So
so that was actually the team that I was on. And so for many people, you may or may not know that with designer or luxury bags, there is a high degree of counterfeits. And so some of the counterfeits are so good that if you were to take it into, one of the stores and one of the experts, they're not able to determine if it is real or if it is a counterfeit. So they have been very, very specific and detailed in the way that they are duplicating these bags. And so our team actually came up with a concept of utilizing blockchain, and we went back and forth as to how you could utilize it, but basically to authenticate these bags. So the concept for us was that we would have essentially a tag that would be put into the bag at the end state that would potentially explode if someone tried to tamper with it. But there would be, for each stage along the blockchain, there would be authentication of where it came from, how, where it was, where it originated, when it was received, what stores got it, so that it took you all the way through. And then as a consumer, you would have this tag in the bottom that would basically help validate each of those steps along the way. But one of the things that was even more interesting about that was, as we were doing research on it, we found that there were several other companies that had done something similar to that already. Several of them folded, and then one of them was absorbed by a large company. So it just goes to show you that there's going to be a lot of trial and error out there, and that there's still a whole lot of opportunity, and everybody is taking, similar concepts and figuring out how they can fine tune them to meet the needs of the industry. So I think that's something to keep in mind, so that people don't get frustrated if it's not, that exact thing. But we did a lot of research, and there were, several companies who had done something similar. And most of them were not successful. So I think that's, something to keep in mind.
Yeah, well, the technology still has a lot of trial and error to go,
Right.
At least a couple more years. So we're really here at the right time. As the technology gets better and better and better, the use applications, and the projects we're building will be better and better and better as well. So it really is, opportunity is when luck meets preparation. And I think that, it's about us preparing and just kind of staying involved with what's happening, so that when things really pop, we'll be there, just to ride the wave. So, so I wanted to ask you, Sydney, you went to the Blockchain 101 class.
Yeah.
I forgot what it was called. But
Yep.
was there anything interesting that you learned from that specific session, or any session that really stood out to you?
You know what? So, I think that one, Talisha and I both went to that one. I think it was, for me, it was a really good refresher. It was definitely, I would consider it almost a 001. So I thought for me, that was great. One of the ones that I went to, which I don't think it was actually titled this way, but it was around gaming. And it is the most fast, and I am not a gamer. Like, you couldn't throw a game at me, ever. But to just understand and look at what is happening, again, it kind of speaks to the forgotten. I mean, maybe it's not forgotten for a lot of people who are gamers, but never in a million years would I ever think about gaming. But when I looked at what they were doing and how people are, so it's basically, for one of the games, as an example, it would be an auction for these caricatures that are being made, and they are digitally generated, and many of them are similar. So some could have on, could have on the outfit that I have on and have on the glasses. One might not have on the glasses. They're released at in limited editions, and so people basically bid on them, and the prices that people are paying for these, to have access to these digital images or to own these digital images, is mind-boggling.
I believe it.
And so what that kind of said to me is that you really have to, again, to your point, figure out the market, figure out the industry that really is not at top of mind and that everybody is not jumping on. I mean, clearly everybody's jumping on gaming, but I think that it's really thinking about and even just developing, because the gentleman who led this session, he actually was showed some video of him actually in the studio with the guys who created this in Brooklyn. And I mean, when you look at them, for me, I just didn't understand the value. So it was really like, okay, you need to really start digging into things that like you have zero interest in, and figure out like where there could potentially be an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a double-edged sword, because you can dig into things you have no interest in, or you could do a deeper dive with things that either you do have an interest in or that you built a career on for the last 20 years, and now blockchain is going to help it take a pivot. So one of the things, I think it was Chris Henry told us this, and I believe it, is if you've got 20 years of experience in a business, go to a blockchain project and be an advisor for that group so that they can get the industry chops that they need as they're building the blockchain projects. Even if you hate it, like I'm with Sydney, I love money. So I might do something I don't like for a few years if I'm going to have a big payday at the end of the day. So
leveraging your skill set, I think that's what people forget at this point in time, that again, we're working with a technology that has no expertise. It has no formidability. It's just something that has to be used, but it has to be used correctly. And if people don't know how to use it, it's all for naught. So
absolutely.
that's why people, you can have something that works great, but it's like, what does it do? And if you don't have an answer, and I sit a lot of times specifically with the technical individuals who, again, are coming like, I built this wonderful thing, and they're very proud of it. And I'm like, so what do you plan on doing with it? And they go blank because they're like, I don't know any application. I don't know how this would be used. And so I met Dr. Matthew Rose, who has a wonderful verification system that works from your mobile phone, works from your computer. And even though he's in the medical community, the one thing I told him, I'm like, your program is really set and primed for claims adjudication purposes. And he was like, I would have never thought about that. And I'm like, I do, but that's why I'm like, you really have something that would really help a very small section, but it's a major gap in the healthcare industry, specifically the insurance. It becomes the claims adjudication aspect of where a doctor performs the episode of care is crucial, because he gets paid differently if he's at an office or if he's at a hospital, if he's what specialty he is doing. All of those things come into play. And just that verification section totally could, truly, I would say, streamline that process to make that process much more effective, saving millions of dollars. So again, back to the not sexy, but it certainly would change and, totally have a direct impact on some of those industries. So again, we're looking for solutions, but also from an aspect of how does the technology help? Because again, it's just kind of an amorphous thing. It's really now leveraging what you know and how that can, bear, like where are the gaps? Can you identify those readily? And then how would the technology support that in that resolution aspect?
Right. So Talisha, tell me a breakout session that you went to or something that you learned that really stuck with you.
I like the debate. The blockchain debate was really, really interesting.
Okay, so I wasn't in that. So what happened in there?
Well, we had different formats at different points in time, but, we would throw out a question, and then people would go about trying to, how you feel about it. What are the pros? What are the cons? And we got really polar responses. Some people were, again, the security and authenticity aspects were really, a concern. And this one gentleman, I'm a security person in that sense. I'm good with passwords and what. But he's like, I don't write my password down. I give a part to 3 different people. They don't know why, and I can correspond them back together. He was like way overboard. That's how he approached his security. But I thought the dialogue where people, again, were coming from very different points, understanding and validating that they understand. Like everybody's premise was that it's here to stay. So they weren't going to debate whether it was a viable thing or not. They're now talking about true application. So everybody's content was really centered around, well, if we do this, this will work. But if we do that, that may cause some problems. And I definitely saw that interwoven in every single topic that we would bring up, that, we had some very, I would say extreme, extreme cases of how they would like to see it happen. But at the same point, that again, it was just reiterative that the technology is viable. It's really there for everybody to use. And again, just where people want to spend their time and where they feel like their own interests lie. Because the gentleman who was a security fanatic was like, if I could have this, then I wouldn't have to worry about it. If I could have my private keys, and I could do this, and I can, have a public key that revolves, and I know I can track it back to that person. Like, he was really, really hype about it. But he made a very good point that it was like the technology needed to speak to him and actually adjust to what he wanted in order for it to be viable for him.
Yeah.
And that's, again, solutions to certain things. So we can go full scope from the very beginning to solve a general problem to very customizable problems that people want to see.
Right, right. Well, I can definitely see a use for giving different people different public keys. So I know if it's that key, that means that you did something, or you're responsible,
exactly,
or
yes.
you gave it to somebody who shouldn't have had it, so I'm prosecuting you anyway, or whatever it is. So he may be on to something there.
I'll tell you, he was deep. We were like, wow, he's real serious.
But you know what? There is a niche of people, probably about 10% of people, who would pay a premium for that.
And that's a whole auxiliary service just to generate public keys that are based upon something that you want. And that's all he asked for. And he kept saying it. Every question, he would still work it in that I need this. And you're like, that seems to me, if you were just listening, like, that's a service. Yeah. What he's asking for is a service.
Yeah. And someone's probably going to build it, and there will be a segment of people who will pay good money, premium money, for something like that. So, and I think so I've been, of course, in business and writing business plans for many years, and some of the most profitable businesses I've seen are these little niche businesses where you may end up with 10, 20,000 people using your service, but you're able to charge them out the wazoo, and there's so much profit. It's small staff and so much profit for it that literally you could live on the beach and come into the office a couple of times a month.
And those also are really good because they're recurring customers. That if you're addressing somebody's need, they're really not going to go outside of the purview to get it. They're like, you did it. It's great. I'm going to be with you forever. So there's customer loyalty that also ensues from that.
Absolutely. Well, I went to the White Paper 2.0 and the VC, what do you call it, breakout sessions. And I kind of want to combine the lessons that I learned from both of them, because it's going to have an effect on BCI for those of you who want to be a part of the consulting company. So the SEC has been making various rulings in regards to what is a security and what's a token. And I even learned a couple of things this past weekend that I didn't know. Number one is when people raise money through a token, they must charge sales tax and they will be charged income tax. Versus if they go through the SEC and raise money as a security, they don't have to pay income tax on the money they raise. What that means is, I'm use simple numbers here, if one of our clients raises $10 million and they do it through the SEC as a security, they get to keep that $10 million. They don't pay income tax on it, and they get to use that $10 million in order to build their project. However, if one of our clients raises $10 million through the token aspect, they still have to pay 48% or $480,000 in taxes.
Wow.
And I raised the question, well, everyone's talking about moving to Malta and things like that. And what I was told by the attorneys is Malta is not the answer, because if you're raising money in the United States with United States citizens on United States soil, even if they're not on United States soil, it's still, the money that is raised is still taxable.
Mm-hmm.
So as consultants, we need to be very aware of that. And of course, we're not attorneys, but we need to make sure that, Tawana, I know you're on, that we're bringing in competent counsel to talk to our BCI clients, or if we are referring people, to talk to them competently about this. This affects us in terms of the fees that we can charge as well, because if they're paying Uncle Sam half of the money that they're raising, that we're helping them raise, they're going to have less money to pay us in fees. So that was one of the big things that I thought was interesting. And then I asked about Puerto Rico, because I don't know if people remember Christian from Sprota said that he's thinking of moving to Puerto Rico. And I said, well, what's this Puerto Rico thing? Why would one of our clients want to move to Puerto Rico? And what was explained to me is that if you live in Puerto Rico for 183 days, you get a tax benefit because of the Jones Act. And I had heard of the Jones Act, and it's, you don't pay as much taxes as a Puerto Rican citizen as you do if you're on the mainland. So between Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, he didn't mention Guam, but I'm thinking Guam is a territory, so I don't see why Guam wouldn't be included. But there's massive tax benefit if people are willing to live in one of these U.S. territories as they're raising money. So just something to think about. Again, we need competent counsel to even talk us through all of these nuances. And I'm sure the SEC is going to be continuously changing its policies or updating its policies. So, we will need to make sure that whomever we have is going to be competent and up to date on these specific rules and regulations. So the lawyer suggested that anytime a company is raising money, they get a chief compliance officer that specifically is there to dot all the I's and cross all the T's with regards to the capital raise. So Tawana, again, I know you're on here. That could be something else we add to the list of people that would work on a project, is the chief compliance officer, and we maybe figure out a way to work that into our services. The other thing he said is don't use email in order to correspond with very sensitive information, because the E in email stands for evidence, and email gets you in trouble. If you think about the latest over the past 10, 15 years, what has brought down a lot of companies, it has been email, because people put certain stuff in writing. So anything in regards to those few things that were said by the attorney session that I went to? No? Okay.
There were lots of lawyers there. That was, again, it was hosted by a law firm, obviously, who wanted clients. So that was their way of getting people in the right space and time. But there were lots and lots of lawyers there.
Lots of lawyers, and also a few VCs too. The VCs were in the building. So, so the next thing I went to was the White Paper 2.0 session. And I really enjoyed this, and this is really relevant to BCI as well. So White Paper 1.0 was really a position paper, and it was about the technology. Well, now white papers are starting to move from not only being about the technology, but also being about the business and the business model, and how is this company going to make money. So we as BCI consultants need to move that way as well. White papers are now starting to become offering documents, according to this gentleman, where they're used to support an ICO, and they're used to talk about the business model, the technical solution, the ability of the project to achieve its technical and business goals, And he gave us a, what do you call it, a revised table of contents that I will share with everyone in our, I'll put it in flock basically, but it really is about talking about the project goals, the team, which we always talked about the team, but it's not just the technical team anymore, it's the business team. The business model, the operating capability, metrics and milestones, and competition, and then how is this project going to benefit the world? So, yeah, so that was a very, very good session as well, because this is my theory, but I believe I'm 99.9% right. It's because the VCs are starting to get in, and the VCs care about return on investment. They don't care about the technology, to be honest with you. They want to know how they're going to make their money back. So because the VC money is starting to come in, and because the infrastructure, I don't know if you all remember, I linked to the I Love Crypto channel and Mark Moss talking about billions of dollars being flooded into crypto now. In that video, he talked about the fact that the infrastructure is being built for these VCs to now start investing in crypto and in blockchain projects. So because this big money is starting to come in, they're starting to demand not only to know what the technology is, but also how it's going to be profitable and when it's going to be profitable and what your goals and milestones are. So we as consultants, we're going to have to start thinking in that mindset in order to help our clients.
I think another thing I'd like to add with regard to that, we were talking in general, and this came out in a few sessions in the sense of me talking at the Genius Bar as well, where white paper and information about the technology, people are trying to steer away from it being a technical documentation, just for the sense of, like, again, you're having more than technical people looking at it. And now at the sensibility was more people just want to understand an overarching view, not so much that hardcore, what platform. They're not really well versed, and that learning curve needs to be cut in half. And one of the things that kind of perked me up when they said, if I could find a company that could, enunciate exactly what the technology was, but make it comprehensive for me and tell me what it could do and how the business was going to run, they kept saying that would be the optimal way to approach a business documentation, as they kept calling it, a source document. What do you do and how do you do it is really what they're asking for, not so much all the belaboring of the technology and whatnot, because they're really not interested. And they're saying that they're not going to be spending a lot of time there. They know that they're not going to be investing in learning about Ethereum and learning about Python. They're not. They want to know the high end. And again, like you said, the return on investment for them. But I thought that was, reiterated a couple times doing that. And it was like, yeah, if I could just bridge that gap of having a really good business source document. I was like, that's an interesting way to call it, with a white paper. So I definitely found that to be something that we could really, really craft, and that could be some of our service offering, and that would be our value add, is that we would be able to communicate very effectively with both the technical as well as the business information and give it to them in a comprehensive manner.
Yeah, and Tessa's writing in here that these are called, she's calling them light papers, and they are brief, comprehensive for non-tech people. So the other thing that I know was there was a gentleman, real tech head in the session, who said, I want to go in and I want to read every line of code, and I want to, see the technical aspects before I put my money into the ICO. I think there's still going to be the old school tech people that are looking for that really good technical code, and the new school, what do you call it? New school. I care more about the business model. As long as the technology works, marketing will take care of the rest. The other thing that I want to say, and I'm not sure how well it will work now, but I have a feeling that it's still relevant. Microsoft, back in the day, was not the best software out there. but they had the best marketing. And because they had the best marketing, they were able to dominate and get rid of competitors that were infinitely better than they were. As you have fewer and fewer tech people making decisions and more the general population, there's going to be something for the marketing of these projects that, you know, if it catches on, there are going to be certain winners and losers. And some of it, I believe, is going to be based on who markets the best. As long as they have a minimally viable solution, you know, it's going to be about marketing. So I was listening to a gentleman on Monday at the Government Blockchain Association talk about their platform and program. They were they said Ethereum was more concerned with marketing, and then they figured out how to put the product together, and they were concerned about putting the product together, and then they would figure out the marketing. And I just remember thinking, wonder if that's going to work long term. And we don't know. You know, I'm gonna have my eyes on both sections, but there is something towards great branding and great marketing that that we need. So.
And again, this is where I think being able to communicate effectively, because again, we're all going to use basically, again, the same technology, but it is who can actually make the end consumer say, yes, I understand what you're saying. Because again, you can razzle and dazzle them with it, but if they don't get it, they won't understand. Like we had a conversation kind of in the hallway walking, and the gentleman kept trying to explain this to this gentleman. And I went up to him in 5 minutes, reframed it. And he was like, why didn't you just say that? And I walked away because I was like, that's all you needed to say. And he was like, that makes perfect sense. But I think it really is in the communication. And that's where, again, the value add is being able to viably guide people through the solution. Because again, the technology it's like I said, like amorphous. It's like, how do you talk about the internet? How do you explain Wi-Fi? Nobody cares. They just want it to work. But they want to know, like, can I use it from my phone? How do I get on? Those are those kinds of things that really, the communication, and that's, I think, the marketing aspect will definitely get the product, even if it's substandard, to reach a larger mass of people, because if they understand, they will engage with it.
Right. You're right about Wi-Fi, because Verizon Fios sometimes drives me crazy, you know, but they were first to market, or they pretty much blanketed the market in our area. So what else am I going to do? Sydney?
Yeah, one of the things around that, and we've kind of talked about it previously, is that really keeping everything simple is really critical. And it's more critical now for consumers than it's ever been before. When you think about, everyone is very visual. They want information very quickly. They don't want to have to like plow through a whole lot of information. So I think our ability to streamline things, to make it very, very, you know, I like to call it dummy proof, or the dummy down version, is going to be really critical, because you want people to get it quick and to understand it and understand what the features and benefits are, and then give them that emotional connection. So, you know, you look at the difference between Apple and Samsung. You know, people will swear, even Apple, you know, iPhone users will swear that the Samsung phones are much better than the iPhone phones, but nobody, you know, they don't have people like rushing to get, you know, Samsung phones like they do. So it's really about, you know, making that emotional connection, but really keeping it simple for everybody.
Right. And that is a key to our marketing division within BCI when we take on these projects, is getting our clients, especially our tech head clients, to understand the extreme importance of marketing, branding, communication, and getting out there and really, you know, letting people know who you are and what you do. So with that, I have a couple of announcements, and then we'll do like a final go around with one final piece of information you learned. So speaking of marketing and branding and our company, You know that on November 2nd and 3rd, we are having our conference. And guess what? For November 2nd, we are halfway sold out. So there are only 35 seats left. So if you have not gotten your seat for November 2nd and November 3rd, $99 for both days. It's going to be in Baltimore. It's Black Wealth and blockchain.com, blackwealthandblockchain.com. And I am taking the majority of July off just to focus on marketing this conference. So just warning everybody now to just get your ticket, even if you're not ready to book your hotel and your flight yet. Just get your ticket so we can make sure that you have November 2nd locked in. Next is on Monday, June 25th. We're having our monthly membership meeting, and I have invited a gentleman named Eric Guthrie from the Government Blockchain Association, Black gentleman, to join us to talk about his consulting practice, his blockchain consultant practice, and what's happening in the government as well as on the private side. So that's on Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern. And then on Monday, July 9th, I have a gentleman coming from NEM. If you ever look at CoinMarketCap, they're on there pretty high. NEM is a blockchain platform that other people can build on, a lot like Ethereum. So we have a gentleman named Alvin Marquez that will be coming on that day, on Monday, July 9th, 8 p.m. Eastern, to talk to us about their blockchain project and some of the use cases that people are using on both the consumer side as well as the government side. Also, don't forget June 30th, if you want to be one of our consultants, we need your questionnaire done by June 30th, please. So I will send a couple of more, notifications. Notifications about that. And then the final thing is I have started working on the BCI website, but I could use a little bit of help. So I need probably about 45 minutes of a couple of people's time to help me write the About Us page and one of the other pages. I kind of have something started, but I'm not really liking the flow of it. And I feel like if I had two people to bounce ideas off of, we probably could knock that out, so I could send that to Audrey Taylor so we can get this BCI website up and start getting money through the door. The final thing is in July, and I want to ask Talisha about this and put her on the spot here a little bit. I went to a conference on Wednesday that had a lot of government contract people in it, and I was given a really great idea to do some sort of a briefing for contract administrators, either in late July, early August, so that we can get some government money before the end of the fiscal year, which people don't know is in September. So I would love to have somebody work with me on the content for that. And I'm going to start inviting contract administrators and anybody else who's interested to maybe like I'm thinking I'm going to do two. One is going to be like a brown bag lunch or lunch period. I'll pay for sandwiches or whatever for them. And then the second may be something first thing in the morning around 8:30 in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, and if we can get a room and put, 20, 30 of them in there from different agencies, for both sessions, then who knows what we can get in terms of some training courses or just being on their radar. Yeah. So I'm going to put the dates out first, and then we'll figure out what we're going to talk about.
As long as I know, so I could be there.
So it'll be probably, I want to do like late July, early August. So we'll come up with two dates, and I got to find a location for it that's close enough within walking distance to some of the agencies over there. So we're working, I want to say I'm working really hard, and there are others of us in the background working really hard. We wish we could move faster. We just can't, but it's going to come together. And I think that by the fall, you'll be really excited and happy in regards to.
May just a key point, Stephen, who is the Workmark individual, the president, we may ask him for 1776.
Oh, fantastic. Sold.
great space in the middle of town. There you go.
Exactly. So yeah, so let's see if we can get a couple of days on, and then we'll figure out the rest of it later. So. Okay, everybody. I want to give you any final words that you have, Sydney. Any final words for the family before we go?
Yeah, just one quick thing that I thought was interesting. So they did have a blockchain Shark Tank, which was at the end of the that Saturday. And I think the one interesting piece of that is, and I think we should all just think about this, is that everything is not meant for the blockchain. And so that was kind of one of the debates that we were going back and forth with as we were even putting our project together, that now that it's becoming kind of the end term, everybody thinks that everything should go on a blockchain. And so that's just not the case. And so I think, being careful and thinking strategically around what is the reason, like why should it be on a blockchain, is important. And I think, all of us are probably of that mindset, but I thought it was just a good reminder, because there were some of the presentations that were definitely good ideas, but whether they needed to be on the blockchain or not was certainly debatable. So
very true.
Talisha?
I'd say, again, these are the kind of events that I think, again, we attend and we learn all kinds of things with, and I think, again, just leveraging our presence in that. I think I met over 17 people. I mean, I came back with 30 LinkedIn requests, and I'm like, I swear I only met 17 people. But these are always a good, and I think very acutely listening to kind of piggyback on Sydney. It's like everything isn't a blockchain thing, but at the same time, that's where people need to be informed, and that's still a service. So having that conversation, being able to listen acutely and then ascertain, well, this is what you need to do, or maybe this is the option, I think, again, is a viable service offering for us as a company.
Yeah. So I will say that I've forgotten about the Shark Tank pitches, but communication was really key there as well, because there was an idea that was presented that maybe if it were presented differently or better, the person may have even won the blockchain challenge. So with that, I want to respect everybody's time. Thank you so much for being a part of this session. And if you have further questions in regards to what happened at Blockchain Bash or the white papers or anything that we learned, of course, the three of us are on Flock and available to all of you. So God bless you. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.
Cheers. Take care.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.